And hi, guys. We are live on the internet on YouTube. Today, I have a very special guest with us. Alan Braufman is a veteran of the New York free jazz scene going back a number of decades. We'll tell you how many in just a few seconds. Alan now hails from Salt Lake City. And we're going to talk a little bit about his career and some of his records. He has a very classic record from the 70s that is, I hear, impossible to get, and it was just re-released. He'll tell us about that. And he's got some recent recordings that have come out and a record label sort of built up around him. And so let's just say hi and welcome, Alan.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Hey, Alan, thanks for making time for us on a Sunday night here. We already have one of my viewers chiming in to say hello. Michael is a big jazz fan. He and I talked about jazz the other night. So, Alan, where do we start in your story? I guess the typical thing to do is to start back in Lower Manhattan, New York in the early 70s. Mm-hmm. And you had just graduated the Berklee School of Music in Boston with a handful of players who would turn out to be great players. Tell us a little bit about that story.
So, well, I was in Boston going to Berklee. This is my last year there. And so I was, moving back to New York anyway. Done with Boston. I love Boston, but, I was looking forward to getting back to New York. And I was playing there with David S. Ware and Gene Ashton, who is now known as Coopermore, and Marc Edwards, Chris Amberger, bass player, who's actually in San Francisco now. But we were all moving to New York at the same time. We were done with Boston. Everybody said, let's go to New York.
You got to go to New York to make it, right?
Well, I don't know about making it, but
or to be a jazz musician.
At least to be on the scene where all our music that we wanted to hear was, and try to play it
in the clubs.
Yeah, but so fortunately, I'll call him Coopermore. At the time it was Gene Ashton. Coopermore found a building, 501 Canal Street, for rent. The entire building, 5 floors in Lower Manhattan, $550 a month. So we paid like $140 a floor or something.
Why don't I show the building, because it is such a central part of your story. Mm-hmm. So I guess
there's the storefront. Yeah, it's the one that's to the right of the truck body repairs, and the storefront. The storefront where we used to give our concerts is in that behind the glass window, and on the second floor was I lived with David Ware, myself, and Coopermore and his family lived on the third, and Chris Amberger on the fourth, and Jimmy Hops moved in for a while, the drummer, on the fifth floor. Eventually he moved out, and Tom Bruno and Ellen Christie moved in up there, drummer and singer. And so we just it was the loft scene was happening in New York at the time, and so I guess we added another location to it.
So you guys lived there and played there,
mm-hmm.
And it was not exactly a recording studio, nor just a performance space.
It was a performance space, but we did record Valley of Search, my first album there,
right.
With Bob Cummins, Indian Navigation Company, the founder of that. He just brought his recording equipment over to the storefront, and we played that set as if we were doing a concert. And
you played there regularly and hosted music events.
Yeah.
Other players?
Well, we used to rotate. David Ware and Coopermore had the band that was called Apogee. It was just Marc Edwards on drums and David and tenor, obviously, and Coopermore on piano. And Chris Amber was on bass at first, and bass players changed. But so that band would play. And then the next week would be my band, which also had Coopermore, but in a different rhythm section and different music, because it was my music. And then the Tom Bruno's band, Ellen Christie. Other people played there sometimes. I think David Murray did one of his first New York concerts there.
But you're hosting it. It's not exactly a club, but people are coming in to see it and maybe paying bucks or what?
It was an interesting building. lot of quirks in there because I'll tell you about the building a little bit. It was, first of all, there was no heat, no central heating. There were reasons why this building was so cheap. First of all, it was in a complete wasteland. There's nothing there at the time. Now it's TriBeCa. This is before the neighborhood was even named. So the World Trade Center was almost finished. And you had to walk about 15 blocks to get to a supermarket or something. It was great because it was like our own little neighborhood. All it was artists and musicians in the area, and the rents were cheap. It was like perfect. But there was some downsides, like the no heat thing. And and I'm serious about that. If we could heat the place with electric heaters, but that kind of a fire hazard to leave on all night and everything. So at night, get under the blankets and, just try to keep warm on the blankets. But if you had like a glass of water or something, you put it like on the side of the bed, you could wake up in the middle of the night, try to take a drink, and it would be frozen. And the only way to keep that water not from freezing on the cold nights was to put it in the refrigerator. The refrigerator was the warmest place in the house.
Wow. Well, you're living the real jazz musician.
I was 22 years old, so it's fun.
Yeah, kids can do that sort of thing.
Yeah, right. And there's a phone booth in the hallway. I don't know why, but what was there at some point, they put a phone booth in the hallway. And a friend of ours figured out a way in which you could call Europe. As long as you had the change to keep putting in, you can put in like $40 in there and have a 3-hour call or something, and long before cell phones. But you touch these two wires together at the end, all your money would come back. So we had free phone. We were off the grid, so Con Edison just never sent us a bill. So we didn't pay any electricity. And we've had our own place to play. We could practice.
First.
What's that?
What was it for you? Any idea?
No idea. No.
Who knows?
I don't know what. I think it was vacant for a long time.
Right. So how long was that building like your residence or your
well,
space?
I was there for 10 years. But as a music building, it was only really a music hub for 2 or 3 years. Because eventually, David, after 3 years, David moved out and Cooper Moore moved out, and it was just more of a place to live. And finally, in 10 years, I had enough and moved up to 26th Street.
Is the building still there?
The building is it's a hotel now, and this is kind of funny. It's called the Arlo Hotel, and I called up. I was curious. Of course, they renovated. It doesn't look like that anymore. But I was curious what they charge per night, so I called them up a few years ago, and it was $450 a night, and we pay $550 per month.
$450 a night for one room. You paid $550 a month for the whole building.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people who own New York real estate are extremely wealthy now. I see people owning those buildings that are $100 million buildings. So, oh well, that's how it goes sometimes. Yeah. So during that period, you made the record that is very, very well known, the famous Valley of Search. And any story or background around the creation of that record, or
there's some. I don't know if people will find it interesting, but maybe they will. So I was the first album I ever played on was a few months before that. It was Cecil McBee's album Mutima on Strata East, and
he's a bass player. He's still with us, right?
Yes, he's very much with us, and one of the most wonderful bass players ever. And I met Cecil when I sat in when I was in Boston going to school. I sat in with Pharaoh at the Jazz Workshop.
Wow, Pharaoh Sanders.
Yeah, and that was fun. But anyway, I was talking to Cecil, and he liked my playing, so he said, "Look me up." Gave me his number. Look me up when to come to New York. So of course I did. And we hung out and we played a little bit, and he asked me to play in his album. So after that, he said, come up to, he's having a party at his house. And at the party was Bob Cummins. He introduced me. He was founder of Indian Navigation Records. And Bob came down and heard a show at 501. He said he wanted to record it and put it out. So sort of one thing led to the other. I played in Cecil's album. Cecil introduced me to Bob, and then Bob that wound up having the Indian Navigation connection. I think it was the second album released on the label, and Revolutionary Ensemble was the first.
So excuse me. So that label, I don't know how long it lasted. Probably wasn't that long, but they put out some innovative stuff from some good artists. It
would have lasted longer, but Bob got sick and died fairly young, unfortunately. You know, and he was good. I mean, you hear horror stories about record companies, and he was one of the good guys.
Good to hear that. I wonder what happened to it. Did they sell the rights to the label to another company?
Well,
who knows?
I looked it up. No, I looked on the internet because we had to know that before it was reissued.
Right.
And Bob's wife, Nancy, put out something that said that all of the albums on the label the rights revert back to the artist.
Wow.
So it was ours.
That's
yeah.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I thought you were going to say public domain, which would not be good for you. So
right.
That's good. That's great. And not enough artists are having access to the rights to their stuff. And a lot of these labels get sucked up into giant monster, horrible labels, but you know that story. So I was just peeking at them on the internet, and I see they had some interesting Cecil McBee, Chico Freeman, Arthur Blythe.
Oh yeah.
I bet their records are very rare from the point of view of record collectors like me.
I think they are. This is see, being out west, I kind of lost track of the scene. And when Nabil Ayers, who's my nephew, got in touch with me, he wanted to reissue Valley of Search on his company. I lost where I was going with that. What was I saying?
We were talking about reissuing and rights.
Oh yeah.
Nabil, you're gonna.
I remember. So thanks. Yeah. So Nabil's my nephew. He's at the Control Group. Valley of Search Records is his company. He puts out other stuff besides me, but Patricia Brennan, as you were talking about before.
Right.
Anyway, Nabil told me that you want to reissue it, and the album had gotten somewhat of a following somehow. I'm totally out of the loop. I have no idea. Because the last one on eBay sold for $471. I said,
wow.
Are you kidding me? So I said, yeah, go ahead and reissue it. So
how many do you think they made pressed in the original?
Originally, I don't know. I'm guessing maybe 1,000, 2,000, something like that.
Yeah,
probably.
So did you even get to enjoy any financial when that record first came out?
No.
It
didn't really sell a ton. I guess all of them sold since there's none that you can buy new now that I know. But there was some interest in the album. So when it got reissued, it got the reviews I hoped it would get when it was put out in 1975. They finally got those reviews on the reissue, so that kind of encouraged me. And I wrote some new stuff and said, "Yeah, let's put a new album out." And that's "The Fire Still Burns."
Yeah, we'll talk about those, and I'll show you the pictures of those discs. Just real quick, Nabil Ayers, he's kind of a bit of a big shot in the industry now because he's involved in a lot of projects.
Yeah, he is.
And Control Group is his record label, I guess. And,
right. Yeah.
And Valley of Search is a smaller record label. It's really mostly focused on jazz.
Yeah.
And
not like with 4 or 5 artists.
Yeah, you, Patricia Brennan, a couple other people.
Yeah.
And it's not a coincidence, but you have the honor of sort of helping name the label. So you're on the label that is named after your thing.
Yeah,
no one else.
I know I had no say, and I actually would have advised him not to name the company Value Search because it connects it too much with that album. But
it's like, it's the Alan Show, you know.
But anyway, that's what it's called. So
where did that name come from? Was that your idea for a name in the first place?
Yeah, there's a book that kind of I thought was a beautiful book by philosopher prophet from Iran, Persia in the 1800s, called the Hidden Valleys, and the first valley is many valleys through life, and the first valley you go through is the Valley of Search. So I thought it's a cool concept and a cool title.
The first valley, and then someday we'll get to the second and third valley.
Yeah, there's other valleys, but
you didn't carry those names through into any other projects. You didn't carry that valley journey into other projects. That name, we don't know the second valley. The second valley. I can't remember the valley. I should know all of them. The record on your. I'm going to show them on screen here. Let's see if I can do this without messing this up. Are you guys seeing?
Okay.
Let me hit the buttons here.
Okay, I see the. Please ask Nabil to reissue Value Search on CD format. Also, I think there's a plan for that. So that's all I know. I'm not positive.
To hear that.
But thanks for the question, Michael.
Yeah, Michael's been chatting with me on a couple things I've been doing over the last few days, and he has a pretty good knowledge of jazz. Okay, let's see if I can make this happen. I'm trying to show the record. So that is the original cover, which was now used on the re-release.
Right. That cover was actually done by Cecil's wife at the time, Cecil McBee's wife at the time, Alicia Haskell McBee.
Sorry. I was going to ask about that because the cover of this record and your newer record look like they're the same artist. I don't know if that was just done.
They're not the same artist, but the artist who did the cover for the newer one kind of was influenced and wanted it to keep it in the same vein as Value Search. So.
Right. So we both have the black and white and the little star up on the side. So, but I get Valley, Burn, Fire. I see it. It's very stylized, minimalist, very nice. So that record came out, and that was really just that was 2 live performances back to back is what that record was, correct?
Well, that's a Value Search record, but not the crossover.
I didn't mean to change.
Okay, we're still in Value Search. Yeah,
still talking about Value Search.
Yeah, Value Search was we just what we used to do in concerts, and we still do actually. Hope we'll have one soon. Now I was very influenced by Don Cherry in this regard. His albums, Complete Communion, Turn of Rhythm, where he doesn't stop after every tune, and everybody claps and have a next tune. The music just keeps going. And that to me, it makes for a richer tapestry, sort of like, you can have many minimal ideas that wouldn't be necessarily complete on their own, but when it flows one to the next, that's the completeness. Instead of having one tune have all these sections, you have all these minimal tunes that have a lot of evolution from one to the other.
So does that mean there was a planned out, we're going to play this piece section for 4 or 5 minutes?
Well, we
didn't
necessarily think of how long we're going to do it for, but after you do it enough, about how long the whole set's going to last for planning an album, So
it wasn't just a complete, this is a free form, we have no idea where we're going.
No.
We had to do this, and this.
Definitely idea of where we're going. Yeah.
Got it.
That's my joke, like somebody said, they complimented me. They said, I really like this, very good experimental music. And they said, we kind of knew what we were doing. We weren't experimenting.
Yeah, well, the label free, when you attach the label free jazz to something, people think
people think you don't know what you're doing.
What happened? You just went,
Well, there is a lot of that, there's
right.
a lot of that, especially in New York these days. There's a lot of that going on with, and it's fun. I love it. I enjoy listening to it if they're good players, and I do enjoy playing it. But if I'm doing something myself, I have too many melodies that go around my head. I want to play. I don't want to just get up there and see what happens. Maybe a control freak or something, but it's got to go here and then here, and those places it wouldn't have gone if we were just free form playing.
Yeah, well, you've got to listen to each other, and you're not just.
What's composition involved too?
Right.
After composition.
Yeah, and we should call you a composer in addition to being a sax player, because all the records you've done are your compositions. Maybe they're collaborative, but
they haven't been.
They're not
the stuff that we record have not been collaborative, but not that I'm unwilling to give people credit, but the thing is that think about like all my heroes, growing up, Ornette Coleman, Farrell, Cecil Taylor. Cecil got into the freeform thing. We just go and do solo piano for an hour and a half or something, and all be improvised. In his early days, I listened to Unit Structures. He's a great composer. The stuff on that Impulse album, Into the Hot, with Gil Evans on one side and Cecil on the other. Cecil is a wonderful composer, And so all my heroes growing up they were composing, they were playing. I mean, not just playing. And so now to me it's like and just get out there and blow. That's fun to do, but ultimately it's not that satisfying for me. As a matter of fact, I feel better if somebody comes up to me after listening to the album or listen to a gig or something and says, "I love your tunes." I really feel good. If they say, "I like your playing," thank you. But to say I like my tunes, that's more meaningful to me.
Well, yeah, being a composer, I don't want to say it's a higher calling, but in a sense,
I
know what I'm trying to get to.
I do, but I have trouble calling myself a composer for this reason. Is I've sat down and written music. I have done that, but the stuff that's really, just every tune that's on The Fire Still Burns didn't happen that way. I'm walking down the street and a melody comes to me, and I have a policy that if a melody comes to me, well, pretty much I got music going in my head 24/7, and it's all mine. Once in a while I sing a tune that I heard somewhere else, but very rarely. And some of it's good, and the good stuff, I have a policy that, I won't write it down. It has to come back to me the next day or the day after. And if it does, then it's okay, that's going to be catchy enough that it caught me. So it feels like the compositions for The Fire Still Burns were so effortless that I hardly like to call myself a composer. It's like I'm just looking up and, oh, there's one over there. I'll grab it. Nobody else grabbed that one. I'll take it. Sort of. You
received them. They came through divine inspiration.
I'm not claiming that, but I didn't work to get them. They just came to me.
Yeah, it's gotten a little dark where you are, Alan. I don't know if you can.
I could turn a light. It's getting dark outside.
When you're sitting closer, it's a little. We can see your face better. So whatever you want to do, I'm going to look at some of the.
How about if I come over here? Is that good? Do you want me to turn the light on?
You can do that. A light might help.
I'll be right there.
I'm going to mess with our viewers while you're messing with that. Michael Valentini again. Instant composition equals free jazz. Yes, I won't disagree with that. Let's see what else Michael had to say.
Is that okay?
That's a lot better. That's a lot better. Even though, yeah, it's better. Michael Valentini, The Fire Still Burns is the better of the two albums. Well, I don't want to get it.
Well, I agree. I like it better, but you have to figure like they're 45 years apart, and if The Fire Still Burns didn't get better, it means I hadn't improved in 45 years.
Yeah, so that's one way of looking at it. You've grown.
But thank you, Michael. I agree with you. And the next one recording in November, I hope is still better.
They're different. It's not like you try to recreate the first record. It's a very different record. is composed the right word? It's a little more
yeah, it's
or accessible. Would that be?
Might be more accessible, actually. You know, it's not
some of our fans. So yeah, let's tell us about the new record, which came out a couple years ago.
No, Fire Still Burns. That came out last August, so it'll be a year in about a couple of months.
That's what I thought. That's what I should.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get that on screen here. We'll go back to that image. And that is some of the same people. Well, is Cooper Moore the only person who came back for that one?
Yeah, Cooper Moore is the only one from Valley of Search. Yeah, but we've been playing. We hadn't, we still lifelong friend, lifelong musical companion. So I would not want to make an album without Cooper Moore.
And for those who don't know, Cooper Moore is a piano player, and he's played with a lot of people. He's got a pretty extensive credit list. He's a very, I want to say, distinctive sound and style.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is it worth you trying to explain how you would describe his style? Because you could probably explain it better than I could.
Well, Cooper Moore's style of playing is very similar to his personality. He's very intense, and he's, you got to be honest with him. He's not going to take any garbage, personally or musically. And so it's a great honor to have Cooper Moore agree to play with you and agree to play with you throughout your life, because he's particular.
I call his, just my impressions. His playing is very, in some ways, it's aggressive.
It can be very sweet though when he wants.
Focused, and it's rhythmic. They go to something that's kind of almost minimalist, and then just branch out to something that's very free and almost atonal. And I haven't heard stuff that's kind of in the middle. Oh, this is a Bill Evans flowery. Maybe he does that, but I haven't heard it. So to me, that there's a intensity that I don't hear from a lot of players.
He has. If you listen to a lot of him, he's wonderful with ballads. I'm not going to say he doesn't do Bill Evans, but his own. He's very melodically oriented for all his the power he plays with.
Great. So that album came out last year, and that was released on vinyl. And you're also doing this on Bandcamp. I don't know if there's CDs.
Yeah, for Fire Still Burns, it's on all the
all
CDs. Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys can go to Bandcamp is the best way to get his stuff. Bandcamp, you can order, and both those records are still available.
Yeah.
I know I was reading about the re-release of Valley of Search, and it looks like they couldn't find the original master tapes. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think they did it right from the original album, and they got it to sound better than the original album, so it was all good.
Yeah. What I heard, I've only heard online, but yeah, it sounds good. But that's unusual. I hadn't heard people going back to releasing vinyl from vinyl. I guess that's all you have. And this was a small label. It hasn't been around for decades. So what can you do?
That was the only choice with that one.
Right. It sounds good. Michael Valentini again has a comment. Ken Filano, which I don't know.
He's a bass player on the album from Vinny Golia. Yeah.
And Vinny Golia, I've seen out here in LA. He plays with people like Alex Klein. I've seen him play.
Ken is a wonderful bass player and a wonderful human being. Funniest guy, one of the funniest people you'll ever meet.
I don't know his work too much. Maybe I have him on a Vinny Golia record somewhere around here. So between these two big projects, you did some other stuff that's maybe more in the pop world, or were you doing sessions, or what were you doing in between those 40 years, those two records? I'm gonna get up and open the door here. Just
go ahead.
2 seconds. I'm right here. Okay. Now that it's less than 100 degrees outside, I can open the door. Yeah. So what did you do between those records? Anything interesting?
Well, Valley of Search was came out in 1975, and unfortunately, not long after that, Canal Street, the music there kind of dissipated, so the musicians gradually moved out. So we didn't have much chance to have the album come out to do many of our concerts at Canal Street anymore. But anyway, there's stuff I did. I've worked with during the 5 or 6 years after that into the early 80s. I worked with, played with Gunter Hempel's Galaxy Dream Band, and Carla Bley's band I toured with for 3 years. That was fun.
That was the one I wanted to mention. That was one of the more well-known people. You've played with Carla Bley, who's been, a masterful composer and I guess piano player too.
Right.
Married to Paul Bley for a while.
And Michael Mantler after that. And now she's with Steve Swallow.
I knew she was with Steve Swallow. I didn't know they were married.
I don't know if they are, but they've been together for many years. So
great bass player still around.
Yeah.
And I got a bunch of stuff with him on it. So during that period, who was around when you were playing with Carla Bley?
Well, the first band, the band seemed to change a bit every tour because not everybody was available, and it was a 9-piece band. So, but the first band was Roswell Revitz on trombone, Andrew Surreal was playing drums, Gary Window from London was playing tenor, I was playing alto, John Clark, another one of my closest friends all through life, French horn player, Bob Stewart on tuba, Carla's playing piano, and the first band had a bass player named Patty Price. Then over the years, had Philip Wilson on drums, D Sharp on drums, and George Lewis on trombone, and people came in and out of the band. It was always always going to get good players.
Did you guys tour? Did you tour with them?
Yeah, that's all we did actually. We played a bit in New York, but on each tour we played some in New York. But she would get to maybe 3 tours a year, and they usually lasted anywhere from 3 weeks to 6 weeks or something.
And did you guys go to Europe or anything?
Yeah,
the US.
We did Europe. I only went to Europe, but then once it was a 6 or 7 week tour. I think that was in 78 or 79.
And you played on some of her records also?
One of them, Musique Mécanique. Yeah.
Michael Valenti is here with all of the answers before I ask him. I got to ask the guest, Michael. I know you know. That's okay. Appreciate your commentary. But you have some other.
I think you should just. I'm going to leave. You can just interview Michael. He knows everything, right?
Well, I may interview him. I interview record collectors too.
Yeah, that's cool.
But he's got a comment waiting in the wings there that we'll get to when it's chronologically. The sun is in my eyes, and I've got too much light. The sun's setting here in LA. So that must have been a great period because Carla, did a lot of records with ECM. She might still be doing them for all I know, and she's been all over the place and amazing composer. Her output is immense. Yeah,
and she was wonderful to play to be in her band. She was so good to the musicians, Yeah.
Which is good to hear. Not all band leaders are treat their ego and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so after Carla Bley, what kind of stuff were you working on?
Well, I did a short tour with of Canada, a few cities in Canada, with the Psychedelic Furs. It's kind of funny how that came about.
The Psychedelic Furs, the English rock pop band. I've seen them play. I have their records.
You've seen it? Oh, good. Yeah.
In the 80s, I guess. Yeah. Psychedelic Furs. That was a name that we were not expecting.
This is, I think, in 1982, and I believe it was their first tour of America and Canada or North America. And Gary Window, the tenor player with Carla, he was doing the tour, and we were roommates on the road for 3 years. We were good friends, he's in New York. He's touring with the Furs and this and that. And he calls me one day, and I'm living at Canal Street. And he says, "Hey, you want to go out and do a few dates with the Psychedelic Furs?" And I said, who they? Because it's 1982. You know, they have one album out, I think, maybe two. And I said, he tells me, he said, yeah, sure, that sounds fine. When's the, what are the dates? He said, oh, they'll pick you up tonight in front of your house at 8 o'clock. So I said, okay.
That's unusual for a jazz musician. Usually got to get there yourself, right?
Right. So
demos and stuff.
At 8 o'clock at night, this huge tour bus pulls up in front of Canal Street. And the reason why Gary couldn't do it was he had overstayed his visa over here. So if he left the country and went to Canada, he was afraid, and he's probably right, that he wouldn't get back in. So he asked me to do the Canada stuff. So it was fun. It was like I figured they must have a following because they had a big tour bus, you know. And they give me a cassette and say, "Oh, here are the tunes we're going to do. You know, learn them. You know, by tomorrow you got to play them." So, you know, I took my ear training courses in college. It was not hard stuff to learn overnight, but it was beautiful in the simplicity. It was. I really liked their music. It was just really.
Did Gary play on the records?
Gary played on some of them. Yeah, I'm not sure which one.
Let me see. Are they here? SP.
I'm not sure which ones he did.
I don't want to spend too much time here, but we have all the records. My wife is, and we saw them play at the Greek Theater in L.A. Mm-hmm. Oh my God! I can't believe that's the freaking records.
Wow! What year was that? The Greek Theater.
The big record that came out was this one,
right?
And let's see, produced by Todd Rundgren.
Yeah.
See, I don't remember. I met my wife in 80.
Because
I met her in 83.
There was a band that Gary also played with called Our Daughter's Wedding. It was one of the early synth bands. It was just like a drum machine and a synth and a bass and a saxophone.
I'm sorry, what was it called?
It was Our Daughter's Wedding. That was the band that Gary was playing in. And they wound up opening for the Furs on this tour that started in LA, and I think it was at the Greek Theater.
Did you say 82 is when you played?
Yeah, and 83 with Our Daughter's Wedding. We toured opening for the Furs for, you know, a long tour. Gary wasn't going to play in the opening band and the Furs, so he said, "Come be in the opening band." So, but it may have been the time you were there at the Greek Theater that I was playing in the opening band.
I met my wife in 83, so it couldn't have been 82.
But no, this is in 83, though. That
83 is a possibility.
Maybe.
We met at a record store, and that's why we have all these records, because
okay.
All of her rock is over here, and all my jazz is over there. So
I didn't know Gary was Nick Mason's car mechanic, but I can believe that, because like Gary is the kind of guy who, no matter what it was, he knew something about it. I'm sure he could fix a car. He could probably fly an airplane or something, you know.
Well, I don't see his name on the records, but I'm not looking that carefully. I can't believe we have so many. I'm shocked that we have essentially 10 psychedelic Furs records.
Yeah.
And I don't have any Alan Braufman records. Maybe on a Carla Bley record somewhere. With all my bazillion records. Luckily, we're just sitting right in the rock section today, not the jazz section. Mars Williams, I don't know who that is either.
Mars basically still plays with the Furs. Yeah.
What instrument is he? I'm not familiar.
Tenor saxophone.
Oh, the new sax player.
Yeah.
Great.
Mars did a few Albert Arler Christmas albums that are kind of interesting.
Sax Christmas with a whole band, or?
Yeah, playing Albert's tunes and playing the Christmas carols in Albert's style, you know.
Albert Ayler? Albert
Ayler, yeah.
That's pretty wild. That wouldn't go over in some churches, I know. There's another album I was listening to on your probably on your Bandcamp. It's sort of a remixed electronic What record is that? Sunrise? Is that this one?
Oh, that was a remix from one of the tunes on Fire Still Burns that Angel Bat Dawid did. And so it's my tune that's on the Fire Still Burns that is you can also get her remix of it, which she did an interesting job.
So she took your actual tracks and remixed them?
Yeah.
And added some electronic stuff and
right, yeah.
effects.
It's really interesting what you did with it. It's kind of really cool to experience that, to hear somebody else's kind of concept of one of your tunes, but not playing it. It's still you're playing, you know.
Yeah, I listened to that today, and it was interesting. I thought I had to put it together. So you started with she started with your stuff and took it her own direction.
Yeah.
More Michael Valentini. Oh my goodness.
Yep, NRBQ. And Terry Adams of NRBQ was the keyboard player with Carla's first band. Because Carla didn't want to play much piano with it. She wanted to write and conduct.
And there's more Michael. Michael has more in the chamber here.
Yeah, and that gets to
you played with Bill Frisell.
Yeah, this I did an album. Well, this is like the whole, like, it's getting into the 80s, mid 80s.
We can fast forward.
So I did an album. I recorded it myself, produced it myself, and you generally would in those days, you know, if you did that, you'd send it out to some companies and hope that somebody likes it. And you call up a few weeks later and see if they got it and see if they listened to it and all that. And so what would happen is I would call up and the conversation goes something like this. I think the receptionist would answer and I'd say, "Hi, this is Alan Braufman." And before I say another word, Alan who? Alan Braufman. Alan Braufman, B-R-A-U-S. No, that's an F. Now, spend 5 minutes talking about my name. Partially it's just because I don't talk that clear, probably. Partially my fault. But anyway, I got tired of that. So I said, the next one I'm sending out, I'm just going to get rid of the Braufman and send it as Alan Michael, which is my middle name. And I sent it to Passport Records and they liked it. And they said, yeah, we want to put this out. So I said, well, they already think I'm Alan Michael. Maybe that's a sign. I'll just get rid of that Braufman thing. So they put it out as Alan Michael. And it's an album. That's the album that Bill Frisell played on Guess What Tune on Sister Europe by the Psychedelic Furs. I like that tune so much. It's only I did two tunes on that album that I didn't write. There was that, and did a version of "I Love You Porgy" also.
So that's the Lost in Asia record?
That's Lost in Asia under Alan Michael's name. And then eventually, so actually I became Alan Michael, and all was fine. And then a few years ago, 2018, then the Bill calls me up and says, hey, I'm thinking about reissuing Value of Search. I said, okay, well, they're good, but of course you can't change it to Alan Michael. That's Alan Braufman record, you know. So it comes out as Alan Braufman. So when the time comes to make the next one, The Fire Still Burns, well, I got to follow up that, you know. I'm just going back to Alan Braufman. So here I am, full circle back. But anyway, so yeah, Bill played on Sister Europe on that album and did his thing. It was added so much color to it. It's beautiful.
I'm a huge fan of his. I've seen him play a lot of times and met him once. He's probably the most soft-spoken, humble individual
exactly.
in the world. Can't get him to talk about himself. He doesn't want to. He's done a bunch of concerts during the COVID, just kind of out on the front stoop. And if you saw any of those, they're on YouTube. But yeah, he's a major guy. Such a unique sound. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Now do we have to go back to the latest Michael Valentini? He's okay.
Oh,
I don't know this.
Who is your friend? I don't know if you want to say the friend's name.
You don't have to, but if you want to, Sun Ra, somebody that I saw you mention one of his albums on Instagram recently.
Oh yeah, the two early. It's not early for Sun Ra, but early for ESP. Nothing Is and the Heliocentric Worlds of Sun Ra. Just I was listening to, I wasn't listening to them. I was wanting to listen to them. So if I had a record player, I'd listen to them. But I put them up on Instagram.
You got to get a record player out to Salt Lake.
Yeah.
But Sun Ra, such an unusual, and I didn't really know too much about him until the last few years.
I used to, when I was a teen, like 14, 15, 16 years old, I used to go a lot of Monday nights to hear Sun Ra at Slugs. And for those that may not know what Slugs is, it's called Slug. Oh, Jack Reich. Okay, don't know.
I don't know.
I was hoping to be this friend of mine, Jim Silverman, who was managing bands, and I lost contact with him. Anyway, what was I saying about Sun Ra Slug? So Slug was on East 3rd Street between Avenue B and C, and at the time was like pretty, fairly dangerous neighborhood to walk around in if you're coming home, 2, 3 in the morning or something. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it was local. It was colorful. The Hells Angels were right down the block. They had all the motorcycles out, all the time. It's interesting neighborhood. But anyway, Slugs, they have Mondays every Monday night. Every Monday night at the Vanguard with Thad Jones, Mel Lewis. And I think there's a Slugs answer to have Monday night, Sun Ra, the big band night. And they used to play, well, the music of Slugs was always from 10 to 4. But every time I saw Sun Ra, I never made it to 4, but I made it to 3 probably. But they played straight. They didn't take any breaks. 6 hours on Monday night straight.
Wow. It's amazing. So you've seen them a lot of times.
Yeah.
And they always did with the full outfits and everything, and the costumes and all that regalia. And
Marshall Allen was young. He still leads the band, and he's 96 now, I think, and 97, I forget, but it's up there. But all the classic. John Gilmore was playing tenor, and
Pharaoh was playing with him a lot.
He never played. By this time, Pharaoh was playing with his own bands of Slugs, so he wasn't playing with Sun Ra anymore.
Son gave him the name Pharaoh. I understand.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
He changed his name from Farrell.
Yeah, I knew that, but I didn't know where.
Because there's the Egyptian thing there.
Yeah.
Gotta throw in the Egyptian. Michael says he's chatted with Sun Ra for 3 hours. If that's true, Michael, you can come on my channel and tell us an abbreviated version of that, because that's YouTube worthy.
It's like when I was over in Europe with Carla. Vincent Chauncey on one of the tours playing French horn, and Vincent plays with Sun Ra. He still does, I think. At the time, he said he went to a radio interview with Sun Ra, just to tag along, sort of. And the interviewer asked Sun Ra how old he was. And Sun Ra told him 400.
I assumed it was some cosmic answer.
Yeah, John Gilmore would lift the band, and yes, he would. If it sounds weird, I'm reading the
I read it too and didn't know what to make of it. So you agree, whatever it means, you agree.
Well, I assume he means that John Gilmore was an amazing player.
Lift up the. I get it. All right. So, is there more to your career story that we haven't got to?
Well.
In terms of what you did after the Cyphers or the Lost in Asia?
Yeah, there's more, but the more stuff, these mid-years after that, till around 2015, I kind of lost my way with inspiration. I was out in Salt Lake City, and I was actually working a lot, still am, as a musician. There's a music scene here you can work, but nothing. I wasn't feeling inspired, and sort of like with the reissue of. So anyway, it felt like I was able to work stuff out here. It was almost like being. I don't mean this derogatory to any musician in Salt Lake. There's great musicians here. But it felt like, as far as the audience, being in the minor leagues, I could work on stuff, you know. In New York, you don't want to go out there, you don't be figuring it out on the bandstand. At least I don't, you know. But here I could.
I mean, kind of like playing gigs that was, you know, not your own music. What kind of gigs are you talking about?
I was playing a ton of other people's stuff, and then finally, around 2015, I got the bug again. I started writing and putting my own bands and working with my own stuff here, and practicing a whole lot more. And it was a good thing because, Vincent and Michael, we need to talk sometime. You know everything.
We're gonna have Michael Valentini epic series of 10.
When you interview Michael, I'll watch. But what was I saying? So it was when Valley Research got reissued, then I really got the inspiration. All the music started coming back, you know, and I felt like a good thing I was practicing all this few years before, because I was ready now to go back, you know, and make a new album, and happy with how it turned out.
Is there anything that you attribute that sudden inspiration to go from not being so inspired to all of a sudden you wanted to compose and do stuff again? Did something happen, or it just was a natural progression for you?
I don't know. It just happened. So I started feeling stuff, and it was like it never left once I got it back. And I think that that's a good. Yeah, I'm glad it didn't disappear for good.
Comes and goes. The muse. You never know when it's coming and going. So I hear you're working on a new record also.
Well, I haven't begun working on it yet. It's written now.
That's work.
Yeah. We're hopefully, looks like toward the end of November, we'll be able to record that. And
you mentioned that.
do it in New York. Same band with James Brandon Lewis and Cooper Moore and Ken Filiano and Andrew Drury on drums, and Michael Wimberly on percussion.
And think you're gonna get a chance to play in New York too?
Well, hope so. We'll have to see. I'm imagining things are going to open up, and when they do, we'll be playing there. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand the clubs are coming back. I heard a rumor that some of the big clubs have shut down for good. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know. I'm sure some of them have. I don't know which ones. You know. I know that the main ones, like Vanguard's still there, Blue Note's still there, Smoke is still there.
I can't even remember what it was.
But I know some of them have.
Yeah, well, LA, where I am, we have like no good jazz clubs, and I don't want to offend the people in LA, because we do have some clubs. We have the Baked Potato and Catalina's, but we don't have a jazz club scene like New York, and yet we have so many musicians. All the studio musicians are out here.
Yeah, right.
And they play at the Baked Potato, but that's not the same as like artist showcase type stuff that you're going to get in New York. I don't know if you spend much time in LA.
No, I actually haven't spent a lot of time in LA. I've been to LA 4 or 5 times, but just each time for 2 or 3 days. Here's a funny story. Speaking of one of the times I was in LA with Carla's band. It's like, it's a 9-piece band, and at the end of the gig, they were having trouble finding. I just figured there'd be people around who could drive all the musicians back to the hotel, and it was there wasn't that many people who had cars who was willing to do it. So we got a ride home from somebody who came to hear the band that night and drove us back to the hotel. So our chauffeur was Pat Metheny that night.
Wow, where did you play?
And I can't remember where we played in LA. I don't remember where the gig was.
Some club, and this would have been in the 80s?
Yeah, it was the very early 80s, probably like 1980 or something.
Well, Pat was known by then. He already had
the ECM album out in about 78, I think.
That was kind of my intro to jazz, was Pat Metheny.
I just thought it was I thought it was funny, you know, just like Pat Metheny. Oh yeah.
He's a super nice guy. I met him when he played with Ornette Coleman and Charlie Hayden out here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Ornette wasn't there, even though it was his album. So I got to meet him once, and I'm a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
And wow, that's a cool story. Did you say there were two stories?
What's that?
Did you say you had two LA stories, or was that the LA story?
That was the only one.
Well, it's hot here, and you're not missing much by unless you're making a major, label thing. I don't know. Michael Valentini has another comment, and I was aware of one of the two factoids he's going to throw at us. I was aware of that the second person had passed away.
3. I heard Burton Green died too.
So John Hassel, I didn't think was that old. I don't really know how old he is. I have records of his that are probably 20 years old, but I'm surprised to hear that he passed away. The person you mentioned is who?
Pianist, Burton Green. I read on Facebook that it passed away. He was from the 60s and the whole new music scene, one of the more well-known piano players from that era.
84. Well, Wikipedia thinks he's still alive, unfortunately.
No, they haven't got to it yet. It just happened yesterday. I don't know what happened, but yeah.
Sometimes, so he played with Rashid Ali, Albert Eiler, Sam Rivers, amazing people. Huh.
Yeah.
Didn't know him. I'm learning more. I'm learning a lot from you guys. John was sick, as in he had ill health. I assume you meant John Hassel.
Yeah, I saw Burton Green when I was about 15. The Village Gate had right above it at the top of the gate. So it was there. They had these Sunday afternoon shows. And Burton
there were two clubs called Gates. So
yeah,
same building. Okay.
So anyway, went to hear Burton Green. That was wonderful, but he had Bard Lancaster and Alto. It was the first time I heard him. And I don't know if you know Bard, but check him out. He's a wonderful alto player. Died young, but great alto player.
I see him on Wikipedia too here. Berklee School of Music, Archie Shep, Elvin Jones. There's so many great people out there. So many great records we got to go back and reissue, which is
yeah.
Here's somebody else who knows about Burton. Words Ruin Music.
Yeah.
Which is a funny name. And I don't know this person, but Burton Green. BYG, I remember those records, that label.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know about John Hassel. We're about at the top of the hour, and maybe a chance to wrap up unless we have any parting comments. Last question I'll throw at you is, are you listening to any modern new music, current music, any artists that are kind of younger on the scene, or maybe you have an opinion of where music's going right now?
Well, there's a lot of there's several wonderful saxophone players, younger saxophone players out there. Emmanuel Wilkins.
He won a lot of awards last year for his record. Yeah.
Right. And what's English from England? What's
Chris Potter?
No.
Kismet.
My mind's just going blank. Nathan Richardson. Forget his first name though. Richardson is the last. What is his first name? I was thinking of Sons of Kismet. Amazing player. I'm embarrassed. I can't remember his first name at the moment. It's just a brain cramp. Richardson.
Where's Michael Valente with all the answers?
Yeah, I think Michael would know. Yeah, there's the thing about where music's going. I don't know where it's going, but it doesn't seem to me to have as much of a single direction. And now it's going a lot of different ways. It's more about individual players. And it's just, I don't think that there's much. I mean, the time of the innovation, it's harder to do that now because so much of it's like if you're trying to find a new island in the Pacific Ocean, it's going to be more difficult now than it was 100 years ago, because they've been found,
Yeah, where do you go from here?
Right. This is like where do you go when all the rules of harmony have been broken?
Yeah, people gave up harmony.
Then it becomes more about just individual genius, and there's plenty of that going around still, And Angel Batawit is wonderful, like a lot of the stuff that coming out on International Anthem, and James Brandon Lewis, the tenor player on my album, is putting out some beautiful things. There's so many good, wonderful players. So that's
there's too much stuff to keep track of. I mean, honestly, that's my problem. I can learn about 10 new musicians a day, research them, listen to them, buy a couple records.
It's like
I'm going to listen to all the records is the problem.
What's that?
When am I going to listen to all these records?
Yeah. Well,
problem.
That problem will solve itself eventually.
Search for the new valley. Yeah.
Always, yeah.
I get it. Well, I'm glad you're staying abreast of what's going on with the new music, and that was a topic you mentioned in the other interview I watched of you, is people looking forward versus looking backward, and what's happening new in music versus ensconcing ourselves in the old stuff that was, and romanticizing it. And it was great 50 years ago. Well, it was, but good stuff has happened since,
Well, yeah, I think you have to do both. You have to look. You got to understand what came before, and you got to look ahead. So.
And that's what you're doing with some of your forward-looking music and your new record that just came out. So I'm going to just remind people where to find your stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say goodbye pretty soon if I can figure out how to use this computer. There's, I got to do this. I got to click a lot of buttons, guys. I'm sorry. It's not easy. So this is part of Alan's Bandcamp page.
That's the Angel remix of my tune Sunrise.
Right. And I'm going to try to. So the album that started it all, Valley of Search, 1970. What was it? 75.
Recorded in 74, released in 75.
75, and then not a similar album, but just as important to Alan is The Fire Still Burns. It just came out last year, and then he's working on some new stuff. And so you guys can find all that stuff at Bandcamp, and Valley of Search is the record label, and alanbraufman.com also. You can see some of his stuff. Why is Michael Valentini saying old bottles, new wine? He's talking not about the Gil Evans record, but just philosophically, I think, right?
Okay.
You didn't play on that Gil Evans record.
Oh, no, I did not.
I'm pretty sure you didn't. Okay. Well, Alan, I think we're going to wrap up unless you have any parting words. I appreciate we had so many good commentators. Michael Valentini, the co-host of the show. Yeah. And we're going to keep an eye out for your new record and maybe invite you back when it's out and ready to play.
Yeah, I would imagine if we recorded in November, maybe summer of 22.
We'll at least do a mention of it, and maybe we can get you or some other people on to come chat with us about it. So
yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
I'm going to say goodbye to the folks out there in YouTube land. So goodbye, folks. Thanks for joining us, Alan.
Thank you for having me.
Great speaking to you.